Okay, but let's talk about that summer and the following summer when you did your first mission on STS-78. Actually, you flew on the American National Day, 4th of July. You were in space.
Yeah, we were in space.
And I remember when you guys were on the shuttle, we had a live link, down link. And we had the national anthem being played, and the commander Tom Hendricks of the shuttle said, you know, when we started to play this song, the hymn, we were on the East Coast. Now it's over. We're on the West Coast.
Yeah.
That's how fast we are traveling. On that mission, Rick, 16 days in space only. Not more than 16. At that time, that was the longest space shuttle flight ever. You lost 8-9% of your quadriceps muscle. That's a lot in just more than 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Could you elaborate on the physiological changes that are maybe more health jeopardizing? Muscle loss is a certain issue, but there are other physiological changes with spaceflight. Certainly, if you decide to go to Mars.
Right. Yeah, long duration is, so on that space shuttle mission STS-78, that was mainly, it was called Life and Microgravity Sciences Space Lab mission. So we had some physical science lab experiments in the module, but most of it was looking at bone and muscle metabolism and exercise. We had the torque velocity dynamometer, which was a great piece of equipment, Swiss-made piece of equipment, and we had a lot of muscle researchers from ESA, United States, and muscle biopsies were done in us pre and post-flight, and as you said, we lost a lot of muscle mass in that short period of time. And, we were in pretty good shape. I don't have a whole lot of muscle on me, but what I did have, I lost. Jean-Jacques Favier was the strongest one. He had massive legs, and even he made comments about his legs looked like birds after the end of the flight. And it just underscores the importance of understanding space travel and what happens to the human body. Because think about this, your heart's a muscle. It's cardiac muscle, but it's not all that different from skeletal muscle. So my heart shrank about that same amount in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Yeah. So your cardiac output's decreased, your legs shrink up like bird legs because you no longer pool blood there because gravity's not pulling it down. Your pelvis and spine and long bones start to demineralize because you don't need to support weight anymore. So your body is very good at adapting, and it adapts by atrophy. If you don't need it, you're not going to keep it. And so we lost the muscle mass. We did the protein studies at Karolinska later, the microdialysis studies to look at that in bed rest people too, to get a more scientific idea of how this is working at the genetic and molecular level, which is very important. But the long duration flights are even more intense. You've got people up there now for 6 months, a year, and at some point I believe you reach a steady state. And that actually may happen before 2 weeks if you're exercising. Because depending on your genetics, as you said, I just lost a lot of muscle fast, and I was eating as much as I could, but I wasn't able, I wasn't in a one gravity G field, so my muscles weren't getting that stimulus. And I remember the bottoms of your feet within about 2 days they go numb. So normally when you walk, you feel things like touching your hands. Up there, your feet are totally numb. And you look at your legs and the muscles start fasciculating like a bag of worms all through your quads and everything. And that's the afferent efferent response from your brain and your muscles going away. So your brain stops listening because it's not getting any feedback from your bones or muscles. And when that happens, you're not getting any innervation based on, sympathetic, parasympathetic tone to your muscles, and they start to atrophy right away because your brain is not sending those signals and it's not getting any. And it's amazing how fast it happens. And it's also critical to understand that you can't be a couch potato and go to space. We've had people who do that. Some Russians have not exercised. Some people aren't in a good shape. And amazingly, those people will do better initially in space because they don't have as much to lose. But when they come back, they're literally bowls of jelly. So you have to maintain some type of muscle mass and strength and bone mass. And the way they're doing it on station right now, as you know, is with resistive exercise. You pioneered that with the flywheel and other devices, but you have to, you know, and you don't have gravity, so you can't plate up on a bar and lift weights because they'll just float away. You have to have resistive bands or flywheels like your YoYo, or something that gives you resistive concentric eccentric exercise where your muscles can lengthen and fight against the contraction back that allows the muscles to stay healthy and strong. And while that's happening, of course, your bones are being stimulated to want to absorb more calcium and be stronger. You can imagine that if we didn't have exercise, and down the line we're looking at engineered nutrition, just not any food you want to eat, but food that's going to protect you from radiation, that's going to be advantageous to muscle and bone growth, and you know, keeping you healthy and keeping you young as much as possible, antioxidant-wise. And also the exercise, because maybe even hormonal therapy. You know, people do that now to some extent. Anabolic steroids, human growth factor, things of that nature may be needed to keep the muscles tweaked to a certain point. But you don't want to go to Mars and spend maybe, you know, 6 months up to a year in space and get off, trip on the gangplank as you come down and break a leg, because that would be a bad day. That would be the end of the mission, and that would most likely be the end of you. So it's extremely important, muscle health and bone health.